Hi everyone. Today we're going to extend our understanding of algebraic expressions by talking about multiplying. When we're multiplying with algebraic expressions, we might see something that looks like this. 4 times 3x. We know that when we have parentheses around an expression and a number in front, that means multiply. So what does that mean? That means that we have this thing 3x, which we know looks like this. And they're saying that we have 4 of those 3x's. So there's 1 3x, 2, 3, and 4. So in total, we have 12x. We could also look at this just looking at the expression 4 times 3x. And when you see an expression like this, this means that you multiply the coefficient by the number out in front. So 4 times 3 is 12 x's. Let's look at this with a few more examples. So this time it says we have a third of 15x. So I'm going to draw that 15x out. It's going to take me a little while, but I got it. I didn't draw the boxes this time to save a little bit of time. And instead of this time having 4 of this, like we did above, this time we're saying we have a third of it. So 1 out of every 3 x's is something that we're keeping. We're keeping 1 out of every 3. So I organized it pretty nicely for that. I'm going to keep this one, cross those ones out. This is my 1 out of 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, and 1. So my third of 15x is 5 x's. If we look at this with our expressions, a third of 15x, it should work the same way, where we multiply a third and 15. When I multiply with fractions, I know I need to turn the 15 into 15 over 1. And then I can go through and cross simplify if there's anything to simplify. So 3 goes into 3 once, and 3 goes into 15 5 times. And I multiply across, I get 5. So a third times 15x is going to be, again, 5x. Things get a little bit more complicated, though, when we're dealing with problems like that we have at the bottom of the page. Because now instead of just having one thing in our group, we have multiple things in our group that we can't combine together. So, as we did before, I'm going to look at drawing what's in my group, 2x plus 3. And in this problem, it says I need to take 2 of those. So I'm going to repeat it. What we end up with is 4 x's and 6. Everything, all terms inside of that group were doubled. Before we move on to the expressions over here, let's look at this one. Here we have 3x plus 15. So I'm going to draw that. This is my group, 3x's and 15. And again, I need to take a third of it. So like we did at the one above, I'm going to circle 1 out of every 3 things. So 1 out of every 3 x's, and then 1 out of every 3 1s over here. So 1 out of 3, 1 out of 3, 1 out of 3, 1 out of 3. So a third of this group is x plus 5. when we're drawing our bar models, we can see exactly how many of each thing we end up with in this process. But sometimes when we try to do this with equivalent expressions, we get confused. There's this thing called the distributive property that tells us that every single term inside a set of parentheses or inside of our group must be multiplied by the number on the outside of the parentheses. So if we follow the distributive property for both of these problems, we should get the same answers as we did with the bar model. So if I'm going to use the distributive property on this example, the 2 on the outside is going to multiply here with that 2, and it's also going to apply to the 3 in the next part of the problem. So I need to double 2 times 2x, that's 4x. And then 2 times 3, that's 6, which is the same answer as we got from our picture. If I check out this next example, I'll see that 1/3 times 3x, well, I would think about 1/3 times 3 over 1, which would work out to 1 over 1, or just 1x. And 1/3 times 15, well, we did that problem up above and we got it was 5. So it works out to be that same amount. So either way you think about these two ways of solving the problem, whether it's using a bar model or it's using the distributive property, you should get the same answer.